It's D-Day here in Vienna for the OPEC meeting. And yes, I'm joined by the Nigerian Petroleum Minister Emmanuel Kachikwu. Thank you so much for joining here on this beautiful balcony.
Thank you.
1 million barrels a day was the recommendation from last night's meeting. Will all of OPEC agree on this, though? We know that Iran says they don't think they can reach an agreement.
We're hoping we'll build a consensus today. That's going to be the big challenge. But most of the countries are aligned around this. We'll have one or two who still have reservations. But when you look at it, really, what are we aligning around? We agreed to take 1.8 million barrels out of the market. It's gotten to 2.8 million barrels. So obviously, either we would have overperformed or some other factors got in. So we're taking back the agreement back to what we agreed upon, which is 1.8 million barrels.
But the 1 million barrels is not actually the real barrels that are going to hit the market. How much will actually hit the market?
It depends on what capacity we see developing. One of the things we're going to be looking at current performance levels, probably about 700,000 barrels, maybe 800,000. But one of the things we're going to be looking at today is a potential that when there's that gap in terms of performance, others who have the ability can pick up the slack. We're going to be looking at that today.
When you say it's going to be a challenge to get the consensus on board, is there anything Iran or maybe Venezuela is asking for in order to get this deal through? Well,
there are political considerations, largely the issues of sanctions and whether or not some of this is being motivated by external like powers, like President Trump. But OPEC is not a political party. At the end of the day, we sympathize with these nations in terms of what they are going through, certainly. But the reality is that we've got to look at market fundamentals, and we've kept it strictly to that.
Where do you see the price of oil? It seems that when it was 75 and going up towards 80s, when consumers really started to get anxious, where do you think is a fair price, or where you see the end of the year?
Well, you're asking the wrong person. If you ask Nigeria, we'll probably say, get it up a bit more. We need all the money we can get for our development. But I think everybody is aligned around the mid-60s up until 70. Once it begins to go past that, everybody starts getting shaky.
What is Nigeria's current crude production?
If you exclude condensates, about 1.7 million barrels. If you include condensates, roughly about 2 million barrels.
There's been some issues with the pipelines in the Delta region, which has resulted in force majeure. Is security worsening in that region? No,
it's actually improving. We've gone from 800,000 barrels at a low end to about 2 million barrels. The ability to have consistently kept that for over a year, maybe a year and a half, is due to the fact that security has improved, engagement has improved. We're beginning to get better alignment with the host community. Still, issues will always be issues in terms of whether we're doing it right or enough, and we're going to continue to work on those.
So if you're producing more, that would mean security has improved?
Oh yes, absolutely, yes.
What's the refining situation in the country at the moment?
Not very good. Still largely where we were. Our refineries are not performing yet. We've gotten approval from His Excellency the President Muhammadu Buhari, to get in third-party investments into the refinery. Ongoing conversations, there are consultations and negotiations going on. We think that by the end of October/November, we'll have reached financial models and financial agreements with third-party investors, and hopefully then begin to rekit the refineries about December. But different from that, Dangote is building a 650,000 barrels refinery. Ajip has agreed to look into a 150,000 barrels refinery in Bayelsa. We're looking at 2 or 3 modular refineries. So all in all, about 2020, 2021, you're probably going to have a movement from less than 100,000 barrels refining capacity currently to about 1.1 million barrels refining capacity.
Going back to OPEC, since the meeting is so imminent this morning, I was at the last JMMC where the ministers came out, and then all of a sudden we had a Trump tweet saying OPEC is artificially impacting prices. Are you expecting any of that today?
Well, we had a good look at this, and our position was we all agreed to try and modulate stability. Stability could be both ways. It could be taking out barrels, it could be adding barrels. We're not artificially, we're just looking at what we don't create the market, we react to the market. So I think what we do, if you say OPEC is responding to market fundamentals, yes. Artificially affecting it, not really.
Do you see that impact, though, of something like that, a president of the U.S. tweeting? Have you seen the impact either in the market or how the ministers
I wouldn't
behave?
be surprised. I think when the price of oil is probably below 50, you're never going to have a tweet that says, oh, we're doing a fantastic job. It's America first, but again, it's Nigeria first, and it's all other countries first, too.
Talking about the expansion of the group, calling it the Vienna group, the 24 nations, can you see that becoming permanent, the OPEC Plus?
I think so. We're working on that. The draft resolutions are along those, because I think that we must move away from the issue of trying to respond to macro fundamentals and setting numbers and production quotas to one of continuous mutual cooperation, sharing statistics, sharing fundamentals, deciding on how to respond to market on a more permanent basis. And there are conversations around those. I expect that to happen pretty soon.
Would they just be called OPEC, or would OPEC stay 14?
I haven't mentally thought of what name it should be, but an OPEC Plus sounds very nice.